Good morning, dear all. Let's start today's lesson, which is about the indirect questions. In this lesson, we are going to know what's the difference between the indirect questions and the direct questions. Why do I use indirect questions and how to form the indirect questions. Okay. We mostly use the indirect questions if we want to seem more polite. So if I'm talking to a stranger or I'm talking to someone who's older than me, I'm going to use the indirect questions. What makes the indirect question differ from the direct question is its word order. Okay? And in order to form an indirect question, we have to use certain phrases. Now, to make things easier, let's move to the examples. Number 1 is a direct question. Where is the gem? And notice here the word order. The question word where, followed by the verb, and then the gem, the noun or the subject. Okay? Now let's move to the indirect questions. As I told you before, in order to form an indirect question, we use certain phrases like, could you tell me? Would you mind telling me? Do you know? I wonder if you know. I'd like to know, or I'd like to ask. I don't suppose you know. Now let's read the examples together and see the difference between the indirect question and the direct question. Could you tell me where the gem is? And notice the word order. Look at the verb is, verb to be. It's put after the subject or after the noun, and then I add a question mark. Would you mind telling me where the gem is? Again, it's the same, but you have to notice here that after mind, I put the verb in its gerund form, which means the verb plus ing. Do you know where the gem is? Again, the same, and then I put a question mark. With phrases like, I wonder, I'd like to know, I don't suppose you know, I don't put a question mark at the end of the question. I just put a full stop. Let's see the examples. I wonder if you know where the gem is. And notice here, I didn't put a question mark, but instead I put a full stop. I'd like to know where the gem is, and again a full stop. And the last one, I don't suppose you know where the gem is. So, in this lesson, we learned that we use the indirect questions because they are considered to be more polite. So if I want to seem or to be more polite, I use the indirect question. They differ, or the indirect questions differ from the direct question because of the word order. Okay? In order to form an indirect question, we use certain phrases with phrases like could you tell me, would you mind, or do you know? I put a question mark at the end of the indirect question, whereas with phrases like I wonder, I'd like to know, I don't suppose you know, we don't put a question mark, but instead we put a full stop. That's all for today's lesson. I hope it was helpful for you, and thank you.